Welcome to Simply Caroline, a podcast dedicated to women empowerment where we will discuss a bunch of different subjects such as life, parenting, love, business, money, relationships, healing, recovery, addiction, entrepreneurship, and so much more. A podcast I'll do my best to keep simple, fun, and relatable and bring you tools to help you better your life. So thank you for being here. And here's your host, myself, Caroline Blanchard. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being with us again this week. I appreciate you. And we have an amazing guest, fabulous woman, a powerful woman that I want to introduce to you, Shanda Wright. Hi, Shanda.
Hi, Caroline. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, well, it's amazing to have you. And thank you for taking the time to be with us. I know how crazy your schedule is. And I don't want to say crazy. I just said a bad word there because you are managing your schedule very well, but it's full. It is full. Shanda is, just about to embark on a tour. We were laughing about that because I'm like, oh, it's like a rock tour, but she is just traveling these days. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Well, I lived in the same town for 25 years, moved there when I was 5, lived there until I was 30, and worked in the same job for the majority of my adult life. From 19 to 30, I worked in the same office at the same company in a beige cubicle, which is very it's a visual that feels very impactful to me. And
very boring, very...
It's very specific. And y'all know what a beige cubicle could feel like for 11 years. So, it was an amazing job. And quite frankly, I think that jobs have a really beautiful place in the entrepreneurial journey, help you get your start, help you, get some capital, help you get into the workforce, and can be really great training grounds for entrepreneurs, actually in Think and Grow Rich. And actually, I've heard Bob Proctor talk about it. He actually built $1 million business and left it to go and work for less than minimum wage for the mentor he wanted access to. So he took a job. So I think it's really cool what you get from those experiences. But I was always destined to be an entrepreneur. I started my first business. Well, I guess I was 7 or 8 because I would, do the extra work around the house. And then I would go to the grocery store with mom and buy lots of candy. And then I would bribe my siblings to do the work with the candy.
Already a leader, I'm going to delegate.
Delegate, incentivize, absolutely. Scalable. Then I had more time for the chores that paid money. Yeah, it was like I was made this way. But that job was really pivotal. But I also I went to Mexico once. And other than that, I never left. And then I started doing personal development. And every 6 weeks, I would go to a personal development event. And I was so grateful that network marketing introduced me to personal development because it's one of those businesses where, and I used to work with small businesses, it costs a lot of money to start a small business. Costs a lot of money. Mm-hmm. Most people put their life savings and all of their borrowing potential on the line. And network marketing doesn't. What's the most expensive thing you can, could you spend 5 or 10 grand? Maybe. It's not hundreds of thousands, right? Mm-hmm. And in traditional business, you're buying product, you're buying advertising, you're buying the tools that it takes to launch your business. Whereas in network marketing, that's all included, right? You've got all the practical pieces, you've got all the content, you've got all the things. And so the thing that limits you is your personal growth. So when it was the first place I took ownership of who I was becoming. And so it gave me a taste, but I was milking my vacation pay, milking it. I would leave work early on Friday and then I would catch the red eye on Sunday night after an event and get home and work all day Monday. Because I was traveling so much, but I got these tastes of these cities. I got to go to a city. And although I was in a conference basically the entire time, I got to see it. Mm-hmm. And when I actually started being able to travel more, it kind of was inspired from that season of not having anything. And so it was about a year and a half ago, I left my hometown. I decided to start a new home base. And 6 months after moving there, I came to Panama to get residency. I wanted a second passport. I wanted to be able to buy property in multiple countries, and that was a business decision. And then I came here and I was like, this is so cool. So and Canada was going into lockdown again, and I did not thrive in lockdown. That was really hard for me emotionally. So I just decided, I had this moment in prayer and meditation where it was like, your money comes with you. You've built multiple businesses. Some of them are network marketing, some of them aren't. You've learned how to grow your money. You've got the opportunity. Like, why don't you take this time where other parts of the world are open, but back home isn't? Mm-hmm. And so I just didn't get on my return plane. Now, in the last year, I've been to 2 continents, 3 countries, and 24 cities. And I've done 2 tours, and I'm about to go on my 3rd. It'll be 8 weeks over, 2 different countries, but I'm leaving from one that the tour is not in. So we'll go to 2 different countries. There'll be at least 10 cities, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So I love, and I everywhere from Amish country to Miami to, small towns in Canada. It's like the craziest, coolest experience. And being able to have those new experiences gives me an even more appreciation for the beauty that life is and the little things that I was taking for granted before. Because when I drove through the Rockies, that used to be a drive I hated. Oh. And now it just took my breath away the last time, because I had contrast. I had experiences. I knew just how magical it was, instead of it being everything I knew, because I was staring at the Rockies my whole life. So yeah.
And I just had a friend right now who came back so I'm in Montreal at the other end of the country. She just came back from a vacation where she took 10 days, rented a car, and the whole vacation was driving through the Rockies. And for her, it was a dream come true. So you said something very important there. Like, when we take it for granted because we're raised in something so beautiful, sometimes it takes moving away from that to come back and be like, wow. And I have to admit, I'm slightly jealous of your lifestyle. I would love to have it, but, I have a bit of a different life. I have my kids, my dogs, and a Great Dane on a plane is not practical. But it's going to come. I'm going to be an empty nester eventually, and that's going to come. And I have a feeling you're like me when you travel. You don't necessarily travel like a real tourist. You want to see how people live in that city. So you want to become a part of the population for that many days that you're in, which I find that is so, that's what really helps you grow. Because you don't just see the beauties of each city. It's like sometimes we think about Cuba, we think Cayo Coco, which is a whole island of resorts. So it's not Cuba. If you want to see Cuba, you really need to go where the people live, not just on the resorts. So is that how you travel? And I'm kind of asking the question and giving you the answer.
Yeah, a lot of the time. And I really love, one of my happy places is the W on Brickell in Miami, which is it's basically a resort in a city. Mm-hmm. But I love it because it does have that full experience in one place. And I really do appreciate beautiful luxury resort kind of destinations. But for me, one of the things that, especially being in entrepreneurship and working with so many people, is that you learn to appreciate the small differences between people and cultures and upbringing, right? So, I've worked with, and I've taught just in the last 5 years, I've personally been on a strategy call or worked with or talked to or been at a meeting with over 3,000 people that I've personally conversed with. And having very similar conversations, right? So some of the conversations, are different depending on the situation, but because my specialty is helping people make money online, talking to people about their beliefs about money, what feels like a lot of money, what their restrictions are about money, it becomes, it's a similar conversation, and everyone's got different stories. Some of them are more the same than I think we realized, and some of them are so different just based on culture. So talking to someone who was raised Amish and didn't have a fridge or electricity in their home until they were in their 20s. And now they're trying to make money from home because they want to be at home with their kids, but they don't want to be I have a group in particular of ex-Amish women who are like, I want to produce because like culturally, they're full-time moms, which is a beautiful, big, incredible job. But some of them want something else too, and don't want to lose that experience of raising their own child. And so, when we're talking, like, I've got 75-year-olds that are, they're doing something similar, and seeing them navigate money in a space where maybe they haven't talked about it is going to be different than a middle class, woman who's working and making six figures and, running the world, but also is burnt out and has lost a sense of self and, has she thinks it's too much work to create the finances she wants, versus someone who's never made money. Like, I have another client, she's in her late 50s, but all of her family going back 4 generations that she knows personally worked until the last day before they passed away. And so when she was able to retire, and she was working in fast food in her 50s, right? And so when she was able to retire, what it set as a precedent for her children, like, we're talking about these things, and the same conversation with those 3 people, so different. So I like to have the human experience in terms of the food and the city and the places, but I also really love to understand the different experiences people have, because I think our experiences shape our perspective, and our perspective is everything. I was listening to a book recently that says, no one thing is either good or bad or has any. It's neutral. Everything's neutral. It's only our perspective, our opinions, and our judgments that give them the emotional impact. And so as I learn to understand different perspectives, I think it makes me a better leader. I think it makes me a better woman. I think it makes me a better family mate. I think it just gives me more grace and understanding. And so there's this like heartbeat that I really want to get from each community, because there's a flavor and a heartbeat in every city, and it comes from the roots and it comes from the culture. And like, studying that, to me, in Panama, there's a lot of Aboriginal land that's still untouched, and people who are still living a very tribal, like, catch the fish with your hands and a spear that you eat. And then there's also, a financial district where the Bank of China and all these traders and, all these things happen. And so it's appreciating kind of the roots of the community, and then also what's grown out of them, and where they keep some of those traditions and beliefs, and where they've let some go. I love every aspect of travel, and food is like 10 out of 10, one of my favorite things to travel for, because I'm just, eating is my favorite sport.
Well, and that's one thing that I absolutely love about you is how open you are, because, everything that you described there it's a beautiful answer, but a lot of people would have a hard time navigating in it, because we all have our limiting beliefs. We all have our judgments in our heads, even if we're like, oh, I'm non-judgmental. Not true. Not true, because once you're thrown in a different situation, that's when you really know, are you or are you not? And you're so not, like, you have no preconceived judgment. You go on in life with a super open mind. And, I feel with you, it's very unique, because we say that about a lot of people, but like I say, it's really practical. It's in your everyday life. You apply it in every conversation that you have. And I had a few with you. So, that's beautiful. And I want to say, this is such a side thing, and I'm going to date myself, but to this day, when I hear I was listening to a book, it still clashes in my brain. It still clashes as, no, you read a book, but so true. So, side note, close. The dinosaur in me had to say it.
It took me a second to get the words together, because I wasn't reading it. So I wanted to be accurate, but yeah, it was an awkward sentence even to put together.
But, now if I speak with my kids, if I say read that book, they're like, why? I will listen to it. And I'm like, okay. Anyway, back to, really the network marketing business. So I'm interviewing you today because you are fabulous, but also because you are a part of an amazing book, 22 Powerful Women in Network Marketing. And you are revealing your key to success in that book. And people, if you didn't get the book yet, get it just for Shanda's chapter. It's going to be worth it. But I mean, it's really 22 amazing chapters. So describe a little bit your journey, how you got into network marketing in that world that I feel was had such a bad reputation for such a long time. And now we're really shifting into like, wow, this is an amazing industry. And I feel like 2020 really gave us a boost with that, because a big part of the stigma was because it's online, it doesn't work or something is wrong. And then in 2020, the whole world kept on going just online. So now it's like the perspective is different. But talk to us a bit about, the industry and how you got into it, because you are extremely successful into it.
Well, it's been the craziest journey, and I do tell it in detail in the book. But I actually was tricked into my first meeting. So I got a call from my personal trainer. And he said, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm on my way to your class." "What do you mean? What am I doing?" "Yes, I'm coming to the gym." And he said, "I'll give you 2 free passes if you can go to this meeting for me and check it out." And I worked at the radio station at the time, so I was going there to tell them how to do their job, right? I had this like chip on my shoulder. And they just asked for my opinion. So I went there in a goal to understand and help serve him. But what happened is that for some reason, the person that was there, and actually she's still my business partner in several companies. She's my mentor. And actually we rented a crazy apartment together now. But once upon a time, she was just the lady at the front of the room. And she was giving a presentation, but she was one of the real ones. And to this day, 90% of network marketing presentations, I wouldn't join, because there's a lot of hype. There's a lot of, get rich quick. And it doesn't make sense in my brain. So although it's simpler, and it's better, it's not perfect, but it's better, that's how it's pitched. And a lot of people don't take it seriously, right? They treat it like it's a hobby, and it pays like a hobby, and then they get mad that it didn't pay them like a business when they never treated it that way. And so I had a stigma around it, and I had, all these beliefs, but I did know that there's some good products out there. Right? I sold Avon when I was 10, and that was my first, and I got paid to babysit with Mary Kay because I was homeschooled. So I got to do a lot of come keep my children occupied while I do business. But these were successful full-time, networkers. And so I think that seed was planted very well by my upbringing. And so when I got there, we asked questions. I end up on a call with her. She answers my questions more directly and more succinctly than anyone I ever expected, quite frankly. And so I bought the products. I showed up, got introduced to, and actually she's the one that said, "You need personal development." But the truth is that I didn't like people. I didn't enjoy people. I didn't want to talk to them. If there was nothing in it for me, I didn't want to be there. I was drowning in $1 million in debt. I was working between 60 and 80 hours a week minimum. I had 3 rental properties with 6 units, 5 tenants, and 18 major appliances, and something was always breaking. I had dogs. I had, my brother got epilepsy. My mom was in a car accident. Like, I had this crazy full plate, but a really empty cup. And they say that you can't pour from an empty cup. And so for me, if someone wasn't going to help me with what was on my plate, help me make money, help me, reach a goal, I didn't show up for them. And I didn't care to talk to the person next to me in line or in the elevator, because there was nothing in it for me. And so network marketing was the bait that made every single person I saw, there was a money sign above their head. And I always say that, God knows how to bait the hook. For me, that was it. And I realized that you don't know who they know, you don't know who they are, and you don't know what they could mean to you in your future. And so out of purely selfish intent, I decided to start talking to people and asking them those, the family, occupation, recreation, goals, like all that stuff that you get taught. Basic communication, be interested in them just a little. It's the first step. And what I found was that they were really interesting. I remember the day that it clicked. I was sitting in an airplane next to this guy, and I said, "What do you do?" He's like, "I actually work for Ford, and I'm going home to Detroit." I was like, "Cool, what do you do for them?" He's like, "I'm actually a hydrocell engineer, and I'm helping them with the self-driving cars." And I was like, "Why don't we have self-driving cars yet?" He's like, "Well, there's a density thing with the lasers. They can't tell the difference between a child and a balloon. And we can't have a car stop with the same urgency if there's an empty bag rolling in front of it that it would if there was a child. And so we're working on," and I'm like, that's your job? Like, you do that all day? Like, who did, what do you mean? So it made me realize that there's human experiences out there that are like beyond anything that I've ever seen, done, heard. And he never even signed up in my business, but he illuminated to me that when we're interested, we really get to find the unique things that each person has. And sometimes their story is a little bit more simple, or their career is more simple, but there's always something unique about each of us. And I believe we all have a gift. We all have a gift with how our heart works, our mind works, our intuition works. We all have a gift. And when we learn to give that away, that's when magic happens. That's when money comes, is giving the gift away and to as many people as possible. And so when I started looking for people's gifts and the things that weren't normal, like we all deal with fear, we all deal with shame, we all deal with guilt, we all deal with, limiting beliefs, we all deal with fear. But when people are aligned with love, when they're in alignment with their true self, when they are standing firm on faith and love and belief and know that part of themselves, and whether it's in their career, it's in their studies, it's in their branding, it's in how they show up for their family. When you really can find that unique, beautiful thing inside a person, it's always so special and so rare. And it's such a blessing to witness, let alone be able to see it come to life. And, for me, network marketing cut my teeth in terms of being kind to people, in terms of making money and diversifying my income. And it's still to this day one of my favorite income streams, because the work to reward ratio is very, very lucrative when you understand systems and tools and you have, that integrated into your culture. And so it can be one of the hardest builds you've ever done if you do it all on your own sweat. But when you learn to leverage systems and tools, it's one of the simplest ways to make money. And so it's a really good gateway into entrepreneurship. And then what happens is you get in circles you couldn't qualify for. So what happened for me is that all you got to do, you recruit 20 people, you get to go hang out in a mansion for a week, like that kind of stuff. There's these opportunities to sit at tables with people who have a life that, like, no one. I worked for the richest man in Canada for 11 years. I personally brought in over $4 million in revenue and worked with over 500 small business owners. And never once did anyone who had made millions say, here, let me show you how. And I was hungry. Like, you don't get that kind of workload without hunger, right? And so sitting with these people and having them pour into me and show me what they did and show me how to do it. I was bad, really, really bad, like 500 reach outs, 3 customers, like to return their product, kind of bad at this. Like they actually, it's the ongoing joke inside our team is like, no one's been worse at it than Shanda. And so they use old videos of mine and things to like, see, she can do it. This is what she looked like when she started.
Let me show you what not to do. Let's watch Shanda when she started.
And it's inspiring, right? Because what happened is it meant that none of it came naturally. I wasn't that natural promoter who just accidentally built a business. I'm not one of those people who got this opportunity to just, it didn't come naturally to me, which meant I had to study. So I remember when I decided to learn how to get people interested in looking at my opportunity. So I went to GoPro and I said, okay, if this is the master, let's find it. He says there's 7 steps. I was like, okay, what's the chapter on prospect? I was like, okay, let's listen to it. So I listened to it every day. I practiced 10, 15 times a day using his exact cadence and, practicing exactly what I was learning. And after 90 days, I was the top recruiter on my team because I decided to master the skill. And most people come into this and they're like, if I like it, I'll share it. And that's fine. Like, do that. That's amazing. And that's where I started. But when I realized that I had to figure it out to go to 7 figures, I decided to figure it out. And because it didn't come naturally to me, it means that now as a coach, I know exactly which tool to help you go to the next level because I struggled every step along the way. But it's built on a solid foundation. And it's so cool because now, that skill set is built into me. And I think it's been really special to be able to learn how to learn how to get in front of these people, get this mentorship. And now I have other businesses that I do with these people I met at these leadership retreats that are outside of network marketing that are incredibly scaled and are huge heart projects for me. And so it's just been this crazy journey of cutting my teeth and seeing what's possible and getting into the right rooms and changing my priorities and having people believe in my dreams, even though everyone tried to talk me out of it. And then, really having a place where I can actually do that. And so it's been like, the industry itself means the world to me because, when I look at the statistics, 80% of women who make over six figures do it in this industry.
Right.
Like that number needs to be more like, why are we not talking about that on every call all the time? Like women, I know, real talk, the wage gap is real.
Mm-hmm.
And also inflation is real. And also we have to keep the children alive because no one else is going to do it. We need to make sure that people are fed and that, the house is run and that the children are alive and all the things.
Yeah, apparently it's a legal requirement. That's what I tell my kids sometimes. Okay, time for supper. It's a legal requirement. You said so many important things in there, Shanda. So beautiful plug for GoPro, by the way, because it's true. It is a system, but what I want to really point out in there is that what Shanda said. We hear it so often in the industry. They look at you once you've succeeded, and they're like, "Yeah, but you're a natural." You're like, I'm so not a natural. It's not like you're looking at me after 10,000 hours of practice, because I do believe in that rule of 10,000 hours, in whatever. But it's learned skills. It doesn't necessarily come naturally. And that's an important point. It means that by finding a good mentor that you identify to, and by finding the right company and the right product, and by investing the effort and the time, you can be successful, and I think that that's where you said it, one of the big part of the bad rap that the industry had, that it was a scam, is people would buy product and expect to make millions. It's not a lottery ticket. It's building a business like any other business. It's just that the limitations at first are smaller and the opportunity is bigger. But I mean, it is still building a business. It's not luck. It's not necessarily being at the right time at the right with the right product. It can be some of that, but usually it's all work and personal development and seeking opportunities that will put you in those positions. It's rarely just serendipity,
Totally. I am convinced that it is your five senses that shape your reality. What you hear, what you say, what you touch, what you smell. What's your other five sense? See, taste, hear, smell, say, touch. Yeah. Anyways, your five senses. That's the thing. That's why proximity is power, right? When you are around people, the conversations are different at the tables that I sit at now. And the priorities are different. And the schedules are different. And creating a space in your life by removing the things. And this is something my mom taught me. It was a decorating lesson. I took it as a dating lesson at the time. And now I apply it to every social interaction, is that if you imagine that wall behind me, if I had a painting that wasn't quite right, but it filled the space, it was okay for now. I just don't want it to be empty. I just want that spot filled. So I've got this friend who doesn't fulfill me, who doesn't bring out the best in me, who doesn't challenge me to be better, who doesn't talk about where we're going, but instead what we did last weekend, or who's dating who, or whatever gossip is hot at the time, or what the Kardashians are doing, right? You have that friend that's like, probably not going to make millions with, probably not going to go and build your empire with, but at least you're not lonely. And I see people do it in dating. I see people do it in decorating. And I see people do it in mentorship as well. And when you can learn to live in that gap, I feel that, like, especially in dating, when you can live in the in-between, when you can let go of what was and sit in anticipation, holding, because you can't receive with closed hands. So when we hold on to what we have, then we can't receive. So you have to let go, but there's always the in-between. The in-between, the ask, the release, and the receive. And that space, most people can't hold because they haven't done the spiritual work. They haven't learned meditation. They haven't done the personal development because the anxiety and all the craziness that happens with growing up in an imperfect world, that space is hard to hold. And so we end up blocking our blessing because we're not willing to stay full of faith and focused and attracting and being willing to sit in that. It's the cadence in network marketing. And I think it's the same in small business. It's work, 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 pay. Work, 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 pay. Work, 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 pay. And it's really hard for a lot of people to be willing to work, 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 pay when what they want is pay, 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 pay. But then they see these people at the top that are just pay, 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 work, 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 pay, 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 work, work. But they built it, right? And they all started at the same place. And this is the only industry where I actually have a shot to get to the top. Like, no one's letting a woman who is like me run a CEO. Like, I'm not getting into a corporate ladder that there's no way. I'm not political enough. I don't care enough. I'm not going to be able to. And so we all have the same shot, but most people can't do that season of waiting with open hands and an open heart and being ready to receive. And so, just like people, date someone for now, or they, hang out who aren't good for them. That's what your five senses is taking in, which is what builds your belief. And our belief is built on those five senses. So I would rather be alone listening to a video of Bob Proctor than I would be in a gossipy, environment. And I've proven that. And what that does is it opened up my time. So guess what happened is I would get a last minute impromptu invite to go spend time with the person that I wanted to be my mentor. And then we were able to build a relationship because I hadn't filled that space with someone who wasn't going where I was going. And so it created space for me to have, opportunities to have more mentorship. That's why I came to Panama, so that I could go on a trip with my mentor. Guess what? We ended up getting an apartment together. Now I see her all the time. It's so cool.
Yeah. And that's amazing. And it's one thing, like the key point again, and what you're saying. And I said it earlier, you're open, but it's really just your mindset. It's like changing your perspective, adjusting your mindset. And when you know where you're going and why you're going there, and I'm talking whether it be in network marketing, dating, family, life in general, fitness. I think that's the point, that we don't take the time to sit down. And I'm guilty of it too. Like, I've done it for business and finance too, really set where I wanted to be and all things like that. But I've never done it really for my fitness or my family. And that's something that I had to learn. Even though my family is my everything, I never really took the time to sit down and say, okay, so what's my next step? The steps are like, I'm having one more baby or not. Then when you're past that phase, for me, the planning was done. It's like, what's the next step? There's no more next step. 3 kids, it's enough. But so it's important to really know where you're going in every aspect of your life and why you're going there. And, that you gave beautiful examples of that, because you live very intentionally. And that's another thing that I absolutely love about you. And I will ask you to talk about that, because you're the first person ever that I meet who's saying that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like priceless. So you are single right now and you have no kids. And sometimes when we talk in our business discussions, you're like, well, I really need to plan this properly for my kids. And at first, when I was hearing that, I was like, Shanda, I don't mean to break the news, but you have no kids. You're like, no, but I'm working on myself to be a better person for, my relationship that I will have, my relationship with my kids that I will have, what I will bring to them. I want to secure their future now. And it's stronger than a vision. You have a very clear plan. And for some reason, I have no doubt that it will happen exactly like you envisioned it. So talk about that. Like, where did that all come from?
It came from this create it in your mind before you can hold it in your hand concept. Now, I'm very blessed. I have uplines that are personally mentored by Bob Proctor. Rest in peace. He has... I've never spent one-on-one time with Bob Proctor, but he changed my life because of the ripple effect of what happens when you change a life. Because when you impact someone, when you change someone, everyone that's connected to them is changed. Everyone that's connected to them feels the ripple effect. And my life is changed by Jim Rohn, by Bob Proctor, by these men who I've never met and will never know my name. And Bob Proctor is the king of that, right? You guys have seen The Secret. You know how this concept, how it applies. And when I was going through all my craziness, and like, as I was separating from the life I had built for myself, and it's actually a quote from Eat, Pray, Love that makes my heart so happy. She said, I looked around at the life that I had built and I actively participated in every single ounce of it, but I didn't see any of me in it.
Wow.
And that was my story. I built this thing that I didn't love. I built this life that I didn't feel, there was no Shanda in it. And so as I started to learn and it was Dan Clark who was the main author for Chicken Soup for the Soul. I went to an event of his once and he said, don't die with your song still inside you. And for me, I was like, what's my song? I don't even know what it sounds like, let alone what it means to sing it, let alone what the ripple effect of that would be. And so I went through this process of just knowing what I was doing wasn't working and knowing that my mentor clearly had something figured out that I didn't, and just continued to stay close. And then she brought Bob Proctor and brought Alex Morton into my life. And they really said, every single thing you think about will become about. And I started protecting my thought energy. Anything that took my thought energy and made it focus on a problem or something negative or something that made me upset or something that wasn't a part of my future. Like when they say worry is a prayer for things you don't want, like I was like, what value is this thought giving? What's the point? How is this going to help? And so I started to really create it. And one of the things that happened is in Think and Grow Rich, in Outwitting the Devil, in the Master Key System, and at my very first event for the company that I build full time now, there was this billionaire. He owns the largest fleet of private jets in the world, and he owns them all cash. And I was like, I'm gonna listen to him. So, because I'm gonna have a plane, like I can't wait to have my own plane, and it will be a good financial decision. I want to be so well traveled that financially it is a wise decision to own a plane. I think it's such a fun idea.
Pick me up one time.
Totally, we will. And so I'm sitting there and I'm listening to this guy at this convention, and he confirmed what I heard in these other books, which was the most important financial decision you make is who you marry. And I was like, okay, so if and Think and Grow Rich is a case study of the most successful men in the industrial age, and I just got chills. It's so important. So it's literally the study of success says the biggest indicator for the thing that is your empire, whatever your life looks like, is in this one relationship. And as I study energy and Abraham Hicks and all these people, I realized that like sex and love and romance are very high vibration, high attraction energies. And so what happens in those relationships really does dictate what you attract. And so I was like, wait a second. We can create anything in our mind by thinking about it first. And this is the most important factor when it comes to my ultimate journey. And without one, it's fine, but who you connect with in that way, who you share your day, your life, your bed with, that is one of the high, and if it's nobody, that's okay. But if it's someone who's not going where you're going and not, and so I actually had a boyfriend at the time when I started, and we had a sit down and I was like, what do you want? And he's like, I want to build a big business in a small town. I just want to accumulate stuff and tools. And I just want to do this. I said, I want to travel the world debt free. And we just literally in one conversation said, we're not going the same places. Let's just not waste any time.
Wow.
And so it just made, and he's an amazing man, like literally world class. If what I wanted was to live in a small town and build a big business, I would be with him to this day. He's quality, absolutely incredible, but doesn't want what I want. Doesn't believe what I believe and doesn't prioritize what I prioritize. And I'm not going to give up this great, amazing man to go and settle with someone else. So I just had this what do I want in my business? What do I want in my life? What do I want in this very important relationship? And then I just said, okay, now I'm going to wait with open hands and an open heart. And so being young and ambitious and celibate and excited for marriage. And now I'm building a business that literally I tell my business partners, I'm like, we're going to build you to income levels that are like more than full-time pay. And then when I cut back, when I step back, we're going to build you independence. And when I need to, you can lean on me while we build it. And then once it's built, I'm going to lean on you because I plan to be up late at night, cherishing every moment, breastfeeding my babies.
Yeah. And that's one thing that I love when you talk. Like, I think it gives me goosebumps every time. You're like, yeah, I'm giving my hardest now because when I step back and I want to be a stay-at-home mom, like I will have built that season. And I'm always like, wow. And she's not even married yet, but she knows she's planning. And imagine if everyone would plan this way. Like, first of all, we would avoid so many stupid mistakes because we would see further than just like what is now. Like when I'm thinking me of my party days, I'm like, I would probably own 2 mansions. You know, if I could have seen a bit further, like beyond the party days. But we don't see further, like, and that's what I appreciate about you. You're young and you got your vision at a young age. And it's not because you're lucky, it's because you made a decision and you worked for it. And when I say work, it's also like working on your mindset, working on your health, working on everything. It's not just working business-wise, it's investing efforts into becoming the person you want to be. And a lot of us are too lazy to do that because, I'm listening to your story. And I would say that probably 95% of women I know would have stayed with the perfect man because they would have been, well, I'll have my house and I love him. So why am I being so difficult? And, why do I want more when it's all there? I'll travel when, my kids leave the house in 30 years or whatever. Or I'm sure he will want to travel eventually because you convince yourself that the person will love you enough at some point to change and adapt to what you want. Or you literally do what a lot of adults do. You take your dreams, you wrap them really well, and you put them in a box on the side of your bed and you just look at them once in a while. So congratulations for doing that. I don't think it's being too demanding or whatever. And quite often women were being told that, like, you're too much or you're too demanding. And you're like, too much of what? Too demanding of what? It's like, that's expressions that we have in our society that bugs me to the core. But it wasn't you being too demanding. It was you being clear on what you want and not settling for it. And, I see it as a huge plus because ultimately you will be where you want to be. And I'm sure that ultimately you will find someone that's as perfect or even better because he will actually fit with what you want. And yeah, so that was my side note on that.
I love it. And I think it's so true. Melanie actually was the one that planted the seed. And what she said was, look at the people that are on the path you're on, but are further ahead and ask yourself, do you want that? And so it started with my career and I looked at my boss and she was broke. She used to joke. She's like, Freedom 95, like never going to retire. Working like a dog. She traveled all the time, but to small towns in Alberta and Saskatchewan in the middle of the winter, which is not the travel I want to do. It's not the travel I'm here for. Like I love Red Deer, but I don't need to be there as often as she does. And she was making less than $200,000 a year. She was working more than full time. She had a ton of pressure and very little adventure. And I'm like, that's not what I want. And then I looked at what Melanie had and I was like, that's what I want. I want to go to Thailand for a week and stay for 90 days. I want to be able to have children who have full passports by the time that they're of age. I want to be able to not just look at places on a map and try to make the food from the internet. I want to go. And being able to see her do that inspired me to say, whatever she's doing is clearly working. So let's just follow people who have what you want and do what they do. And I think that if we were more like, because people always say, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'm like, just point at someone who's got what you want and then just do the thing that they're doing. And it sounds so simple. It's almost so simple that you can't. And it's been really cool, actually, because Alex Morton, he was personally mentored by Bob Proctor, and he's, one of Melanie and Greg's and my personal mentors as well. And he is law of attraction guy. Like, he's now teaching Bob stuff, right? Like, he's that guy. And he literally uses his wife as an example of, he's like, the moment I met her, I realized everything you create comes from your mind. You can have anything you want because she's literally perfect for him. And I'm just like, and he uses that as an example. And I thought that was really, and he's like early 30s, very successful in network marketing, doesn't have to be in a position where he's like, this is my bride. But, he's really decided that that's what he wanted, and he attracted it right to him. And so it's
wouldn't that be amazing? Like, you meet someone and you genuinely know, because you feel it from them, that you are the one. Like, must be an amazing, amazing feeling.
Totally. And I'm just like, it's so funny. I say boredom. I have this thing that Tony Robbins taught me. And I used to self-sabotage a lot, right? I come from a past of having, painkiller addictions. I used to smoke a pack a day. I would sabotage my relationships and my situations. And so learning to no longer make things difficult, I was like, life's hard enough. Let's not add extra. Tony Robbins does this thing. What you move away from needs to be what you align with. So what you move away from, so most people are afraid of failure, but they're wanting success. Well, you can't have success without failure. So we'll avoid the pain of failure with more enthusiasm than we will pursue success. And what that means is, by definition, a fear of failure will keep you from succeeding. And I'm like, it just made sense in my brain in a way so he's like, what you move away from needs to align with what you move towards. So one of the things that I move away from is boredom. And I move towards excitement. I move away from mediocrity and towards excellence, away from complacency and towards growth, away from stagnation and towards movement, away from fear and towards love. And so when you start knowing those sorts of things, it makes these so much clearer. And it makes it so that what you move away from it just becomes simple. And I love that.
I'm in awe with you. So, usually, the interviewer has better comments, but I'm just like, you're saying so much, and it's just a lot to take in and digest. And I hope you guys rewind that and re-listen, because there's a lot of words and wisdom in, this packed hour that we did together. Get the book. 22 Powerful Women in Network Marketing Reveal Their Key to Success. Shanda's chapter is amazing. And, follow her on social media. I will put all of her information so you can reach out to her. And she is just a joy to follow on social media anyway. Like, if you're having a bad day or whatever, just need a pick me up line, go on our page and you'll get it. And Shanda, what would you leave people with, like this one sentence that if they have to remember one thing, that's what you want them to remember?
I want you to remember to get what you came for. You came to network marketing for a reason. You came to this podcast for a reason. You picked up that book for a reason. And that desire inside of you, it's not from you, but it is for you. And so trust that your desires desire you as much. And when you go after them and you get what you came for, you get that thing, that the blessings will overflow into so many lives. And maybe they're just the people closest to you. But when you really focus on that, what you came here for, and you don't stop until you get it, that is really the most beautiful self-development growth journey. It's one of the most beautiful, enlightening things that you'll ever go through. And just get what you came for.
That's so awesome. Get what you came for. I think I'm going to put that as the title of the podcast.
Let's do it.
Yeah, to everyone, thank you so much for being with us this week. Shanda, thank you so much for being here and all of your wisdom. I appreciate you. And to everyone, have a beautiful week, and I will see you next week.